Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vince Salerno podcast. This is episode 97. As always, I'm your host, Vince Salerno, and today we are doing something a little different, something we used to do on this show, haven't done in a while, but we're doing it again. We're going to review a movie, and I figured this movie, I shouldn't review it if I'm not going to bring on my special guest, who is essential to introducing me to some of the greatest westerns, greatest war films, greatest action films, and has helped to foster my creativity and all that. My dad. Hey, Dad, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Vince. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you. So, what is your relationship, or what do you remember about The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Because you've seen this movie dozens of times. I'm pretty sure even before I was born. So
yeah, I just remember that the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It was a catchy title, but then they had to tell you at the beginning of the movie who's the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Although they all had little aspects of the bad and the ugly.
They're all kind of bad in some
degree.
degree.
They're all kind of bad in a degree, and so it was always kind of a ironic movie to watch because it was I remember John Wayne didn't like some of Clint Eastwood's movies because he said they were always so dirty and nasty and gnarly and
narcissistic, or not narcissistic, but nihilistic.
Yeah, and so I like John Wayne movies too. It's just I probably have about 60 or 70 movies that I would say are my favorite, but this happens to be in Clint Eastwood's genre, his first spaghetti western, and I like the totality of the movie, that it has three different sides, kind of like the see no evil, hear no evil, and the monkey, the monkeys. So I just thought it was probably more realistic to the West, because the West, in my opinion, was probably pretty rough. The average life expectancy was only like 28. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it
kill or be killed.
Yeah, exactly. It was a rough time to be around. Not a lot of women, and when we're around, we're not in high regard.
Yeah.
Put it that way, and be nice about it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, it was just a neat, different movie than some of the other westerns.
Do you remember the first time watching it?
Oh gosh, it was probably with my dad. He was a big western fan, and yeah, it was probably with him. But I mean, when we watched it, it was an event because you had a thing called TV Guide. It was a paper magazine that everybody got, or it was in the newspaper. And so you read that in order to find out if there was some special show or movie being on. And after it'd been in the theaters, then, we couldn't afford to go to movie theaters when I was growing up. So we waited till it became like a rerun on TV. And then we watched it on TV. But I remember a black and white TV, but I think the first time I saw it, it was in color. So.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you didn't get to see it in theaters, but seeing it on TV was kind of like a big deal because you couldn't just pull it up on streaming.
Right.
You had to. Yeah, I think I remember talking to someone recently about there used to be this thing called a guide, and you have to look up the channel numbers.
And the remote control was me.
Yeah. You have to wait for it to come on at a certain time, and if you didn't catch it then, well, you're gonna have to wait a couple months. Yeah.
So
yeah, you introduced us to these movies, not at a super young age, but like I remember vividly growing up with John Wayne, Clint Eastwood movies. What made you want to pass that on to us?
I just think some movies and some genres are closer to real life, and I didn't want to shelter my kids into thinking that life was all peachy and it was a bed of roses, and kind of like the appreciation of winning of the Wild West. There was a genre in there where we didn't do very nice things to the Indian population, and vice versa. And people would say, "Well, that's just terrible what we did." I said, well, yeah, but that was ultimately it was a war, and they lost. They couldn't get their tribes together to fight back as one, which would have made things a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
But so I mean, in westerns it shows some of that on both sides of the fence of how brutal it was. Just to make you kids grow up with an appreciation for how the West was won, how the country was won. I think all of you guys have a big appreciation for history,
Mm-hmm.
and your mom and me both do too. So I think that was something that all four of you in different aspects have that love for history. And although movies are fictional,
Mm-hmm.
they're still give you an idea of what real life would have been back then.
Yeah. Well, I think in westerns in particular, I remember watching movies like Big Jake, the John Wayne movie, where he was a little older and maybe he was trying to make his characters a little more edgy than they used to be.
Yeah.
But I remember that one was specifically about like the Industrial Revolution and kind of the death of like the Old West and the beginning of all these like innovations and technology and stuff. And John Wayne's character in that film was kind of an old soul. He was kind of a relic of his time, and his sons were kind of forward thinking. Like one of his sons like rode a motorcycle and didn't carry guns and didn't like to kill, and the other was kind of like a modern day version of him, but he was really he had some major daddy issues.
Yeah, because I think I remember in that movie they just gotten like a semi-automatic gun. And they about shot John Wayne in the movie.
Yeah. It was just fun with the motorcycle. He's like, I don't even know how to work this thing.
So those were probably those neat kind of transitions of time, and we didn't really see a lot of that. Well, I guess we did. We see computers. We have channel changers now.
Yeah.
We can watch a movie 100 times over and over again where there's no TV guide anymore. You select what you want to look at and what you want to search for.
If you can't watch something on one service, you can look through multiple others like Tubi or Amazon or Disney Plus, and if it's not there, you can rent it for $3 at like at the click of a button.
Yep. Yeah. No more VHS stores to go rent it or try to buy the old versions of them.
Yeah.
All that stuff's gone to the wayside. So
although
we've saw a different changeover, although not a shootist type changeover, but more of a electronic change of things.
Yeah.
So
I think it's funny because I talk to people all the time. Like Kate and I, there's this video store we go to. We'll buy a lot of our movies and we can afford them if we like them. And one of the guy at the cash register, I was talking to him. And I was just like, so how profitable is this place actually? Like, with all due respect, and he's like, well, actually, a lot of people come in and say they're canceling their streaming services because they're sick of movies coming on and off of streaming, and they just want to own the movies outright. And so he's like, I predict in a couple of years you're going to see streamers start to not die out, but like you'll start to see less of them, and you'll see more people buying movies. And then maybe if you want like Disney Plus or Amazon or HBO Max because they have like their specific catalog of movies, you'll buy that. But I hope that physical media makes a comeback because I think it's a tribute to how you and Mom raised us. Like, we just grew up with owning movies, and it was kind of a luxury when a luxury we kind of took for granted, owning movies, but also it was a rare thing when we could buy a movie. Like, I remember you guys would I remember one time you guys surprised us with Finding Nemo on VHS. And we're like, whoa, like this is really hard to get. You guys got it.
Yeah. I suppose it'll be interesting to see if it changes or not in the future. I suppose there's people get tired of everything, and they definitely don't have to settle for like what we did, which was either a TV guide or the newspaper to find out what was coming on in the next couple of weeks. So I mean,
even I remember going on the newspaper and looking to see what movies are playing in the theater. Like, let's go see that.
Yeah.
I don't think streaming will die, and I think it is a convenience. Like, it's nice to be able to have all these movies at our fingertips, and I think it's just as a filmmaker, like, it's nice to have that that accessibility to you have another way to put your movie out to the public beyond just like getting it in the theater, which is the ultimate goal. But if you can't, streaming's not a bad option. So I think I used to be very cynical about streaming, and I've kind of changed my tune. I don't think it's totally bad. I think it has ultimately, done a lot of good for the film industry in general, and just for people in general. But I still don't think you can beat the cinematic theatrical experience.
Right. Well, it seems like smaller filmmakers kind of make their way, or they get their way into the bigger screens by doing their smaller movies initially, and then being discovered and going that route where that wasn't so prevalent. I mean, you had to go through Hollywood or nothing at all, which obviously is, you've seen different people go away from Hollywood and set up camps in different cities and different states and create their own product. So, I mean, it seems like, and I kind of like that. I don't, you don't want to have anybody have a monopoly on movie making, because then I think the politics can get involved in some of the movie making, or the wokeness of production of movies when you have just one place making all the movies. And we've seen that in Hollywood already, that it doesn't end well,
No.
And a lot of the movies that we've seen come out recently, I just listen to you and find out if I'm going to like it or not. So I don't waste my money going to see it.
Yeah.
And if you didn't like it, I know I probably wouldn't either, because we have the same likes. And even the newer stuff that I've never been exposed to, I kind of listen to what you say and think, okay, when that comes on TV, if I'm going to bother to watch it or not.
Yeah.
So that's why I like that you want to bring back kind of like an opinion, and then people join your site and stuff to see what they would. People don't want to be bothered with crappy movies, and to go to someone that they feel comfortable with is kind of like not very many people I know of. I think I saw one other episode on the news that you were on with another guy, and I never heard of that guy. So,
you mean Blaze News?
Yeah, Blaze
with Matthew
News.
Marsden.
And when he came on, I heard the name through you, but otherwise, I never heard of that guy before then. But you're really the only two I know that actually give an opinion on movies, which I kind of like, because I guess I'm modernizing my thoughts. I want to be instantly gratified, and I don't want to waste my time watching this movie if it's bad.
Well, yeah, that's the benefit of streaming. Like you're right. It doesn't waste your time with that. Like, you don't have to watch a crappy movie if you know what's coming out.
Yeah.
And yeah, Marsden's really great on that. I mean, he's preaching a lot of truth on his own platform, which people should definitely subscribe to. That I don't think Hollywood or even conservatives pay enough attention to. Like, he's got a lot of great ideas to modernize and revolutionize not just the conservative film industry, but the film industry in general. I think if more people paid attention to what he was saying, you'd see some good change.
Right.
Do you think movies today are, just speaking on streaming and stuff and the accessibility of movies, do you think streaming movies or just modern movies today are better or worse than what you're used to or growing up with? Because I think The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a pretty phenomenal movie to a lot of people. It's considered one of the greatest films of all time. And like, by comparison today with what filmmakers are making today, do you think we're progressing as an industry, or do you think we're degressing?
Well, they're producing more. What would I say? More action stuff, and sometimes it can be a little too predictable. Although I'll watch it, but it's the storylines and the writings are kind of weak sometimes, because you already know what's going to happen, or you have a pretty good idea, and there's not a lot of good writing out there when it comes to the action movies. I look back on movies that I watched with Charlton Heston and guys like that, and even like this movie, it was done differently by was it Sierra Leone? I think that's
Sergio Leone. Yeah.
And I think in this movie, he actually kind of changed the thing, had the music in the background while while the action was going on. And I remember Kate saying, "Yeah, there wasn't a lot of dialogue." And I had to chuckle because I went back and kind of looked at it through Kate's eyes, and I was like, "Yeah, she's kind of right. It's a very visual movie for quite a bit of it."
Yeah, yeah.
And if you don't watch the visual, you miss a lot of things. And so, um, this was a 3-hour movie, which it would be unheard of in today's movies. But I think in order to do it its justice, some movies need to be that long. And it seemed like there was only a couple slow parts of the movie, but they were still formative. And it really wasn't written and done the way it normally would be done in a movie. Now, if you go
for the times, exactly. Yeah.
And then if you go to John Wayne or a Charlton Heston movie or Yul Brynner or something like that, those guys were kind of like iconic stars. When they were in something, I don't remember too many of their movies being failures.
Yeah. They were kind of the superhero films of their day.
Yeah, and they were well written. And I think, I don't want to say that the movies are lacking, but I think there's probably better writers out there that aren't getting their dues. And even if people had to repeat kind of the same type of movie, but they could change the dialogue and the writing, I think they could make a nice movie out of something. But it's just, I think writing is kind of, I don't know if that's done by Hollywood and that they're suppressing writers, or I doubt that there's less writers out there. I think there's a lot of good writers, but it's just not, they're not being allowed to be expansive. One guy though is creative. I liked his movies. I would never watch any of them with Mom, but I can't think of his name, but he did The Hateful Eight.
Quentin Tarantino.
And he was the writer for a lot of those, wasn't he?
Yeah, he wrote and directed a lot of his movies.
Those were refreshingly, although bloody and gory, they were refreshingly great because it was some really good writing that you didn't know where it was going to turn. And that's what you want. You want to always be guessing where the next one is. I can watch his movies again and still not remember exactly where all the turns are at, except for Hateful Eight.
Still be surprised
several times, but so I probably know that one too much.
Yeah. Well, that one also was composed by Enrico Morricone. He did the soundtrack for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned Tarantino because he actually has said The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is his favorite movie, and he thinks it's influenced a lot of his films, like even beyond just like Django Unchained or The Hateful Eight, which are westerns.
Yeah,
a lot of his movies have influences or callbacks. Like remember Reservoir Dogs?
Yeah.
That the scene at the end where they're all in the warehouse and they're hiding out from the cops. They all have kind of a Mexican standoff.
Yeah,
that was pulled directly from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
At the very end there.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he's probably one of the only ones that I haven't seen anything that he's done recently, but that I thought, wow, that was really good writing because it was just a different route, and that's what you need is good writing. And I think if it's a good written movie, it gives the director, everyone has can then put their creative attitude into it, and it just makes it for a great movie. But, obviously, some of them are a little too gory for like your mom.
Yeah,
my wife, but
my wife too. Yeah. No, Kate was watching when I was watching it. She was just sitting next to me reading a book. She'd tune in and out, and she told me the same thing. Like this is just so boring. Like I'd rather die than watch this movie. And I told her
that was it though. She was only listening to it. She wasn't actually
even then though. I just think it just doesn't interest her, which is totally fine. But when the iconic final scene, the standoff happens, it's like, okay, at least pay attention to this because like you'll be able to impress your film friends or whatever, or any film buffs you come across. Like, well, I've seen the standoff of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah. Did you know what actually happened? How he only had to worry about one guy instead of two.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Tarantino's always been an influence for me and like my ideas as a filmmaker. I even made a short film that was intentionally trying to like take inspiration from like his camera shots, his tone, his characters. I actually, I don't know if you can see right there on the shelf, but I have the novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I'm a huge fan of his. I think he gets why those films worked, why they're so still to this day so beloved and revered. And he's the only filmmaker I think that's like trying to live to that old expectation of movies. I mean, I'm not saying every filmmaker who isn't, is horrible. I mean, there's still some great movies coming out these days, but I think they are unfortunately far and few between what Tarantino's done and what he's trying to do. We should probably talk about the movie itself.
Oh, what I remember the other day, or this was maybe 6 months ago, I sent you the orchestrated version, video version of the orchestra,
right,
and how the music, and I think you said something to me then. I didn't know that there was a woman that was doing this part.
Oh yeah.
And so, but I mean, I never seen it until then, but it was pretty cool. The whole orchestra had a really neat bit in music itself.
Yeah, I think actually the original soundtrack, it was a guy, but I think for that particular performance it was a woman. Both phenomenal. Like I think if I didn't see like it was a woman, I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. Like they both did a phenomenal job. And yeah, the soundtrack, I guess was just getting right into the movie. Like the soundtrack, I think, is kind of a character in itself because it's so eerie and so different from what people did with westerns back in the day. Like be typical kind of orchestral harmonica, sometimes like a guitar, like very very simple, very sometimes subdued and quiet. Very Hollywood. This felt very experimental, and I remember reading that Morricone, he wanted to distinguish different parts of the main theme with the three characters. So whenever you hear the do 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 do, like that's every time it plays with the three characters, it's a different instrument. So for Clint Eastwood's character, the man with no name, it's a flute. With Tuco, it's just like a chant, like an Indian scream. And then with Lee Van Cleef's character, Angel Eyes, it's I don't remember the name of the instrument. It's a very unique and distinct instrument. It's like this. I'll put the name up on the screen so if I remember it, but I can't remember it. But it's like this this circular looking instrument with all these different holes, and it has this like really eerie, like ooh, it's kind of a spooky sound, which fits with the bad because he's an evil character. So yeah, let's talk about the movie itself. I guess let's start with Clint Eastwood because for all intents and purposes, he is the star of the movie. Even though I don't think he is the main character, he is the star of the movie, which we'll get back to. But he did 2 movies before this one as that character, right? The man with no name.
Right. And what was the other one?
The Fistful of Dollars. And then For a Few Dollars More.
Yeah, right.
And did you watch those before watching this one, or did you go right into?
No, I remember both of those because the character kind of flows out of this movie, and you always wonder if he had like I don't know how many. Oh, he had like $100,000 when he walked away from this movie. It's like, well, he must have blown it because now he's back out there destitute again. Yeah. How do you blow $100,000 back in that day?
Right. I think actually I read that The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is technically a prequel to the first 2 movies.
Right.
So because he doesn't start off the movie in that iconic costume with the poncho and the fur vest and the hat. Yeah. And this is kind of like almost like an origin of like how he got those clothing pieces and how he started off, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a reason why people call this movie iconic, and his performance specifically iconic, I think, because he exudes cool and sexy. I think Quentin Tarantino said like Westerns before this movie weren't sexy.
Yeah.
And not even necessarily saying that there's like a sex appeal to it, but like, I mean, Clint Eastwood is, he's a good looking guy for the time. And his character is so different from like, I think what people expected from their Western heroes. I mean, he was the white, blue-eyed, hero, and he looks the part of the hero, even though he's not really a hero. And I think it's the charm of his character is the fact that he says very little. He reveals very little about himself, but you're intrigued by him because of his actions. Like it's kind of like what they say about like actions speak louder than words. And I think that's particularly true for Clint Eastwood's character.
Yeah, that's true. I think what I first remembered, and I had never noticed this until I watched it this last time, and I've watched it a lot, but the first character that comes on screen, I looked at his face, and on his left cheek, he had a hole, a scar. And it looked like that was where a bullet hole went into his cheek. And then as you watch him go into the bar, go after Tuco, you notice his whole right side's got this big jagged scar, like somebody sewed it back up, but it still was in rough shape.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my gosh, this guy's gotten shot in the face, and he's a pretty nasty looking guy when you look at him. And then he keeps popping up in the movie, going after Tuco.
Yeah.
But they never say, except for maybe that he's got a $2,000 or $3,000 bounty on his head. That's why these guys are going after him. But it seemed like there was more to it than that. But you just don't know. They never really say in the movie.
Yeah,
so that was kind of an
left up to
thing.
Yeah, it's like left up to your imagination. I guess let's just go right into Tuco, because I guess to not to poo-poo Quentin Tarantino, or I keep wanting to say Quentin Tarantino, Clint Eastwood's character, like he's fascinating, he's cool, he's the guy everyone wants to be, but he's not the main character. He's not even the most interesting character.
Right,
I think the main character is Tuco.
Yeah,
and I think the reason why is because we learn the most about him, and in a weird way we kind of sympathize with him throughout the movie.
Yeah,
because he's called the Ugly, referred to as the Ugly. He also has the nickname the Rat, which I think is appropriate, because I remember like looking at the scene where he's in the cemetery and he's like walking around looking at all the graves. He has this weird little like bounce he does, and it's like he literally walks or runs like a rat, like a rat trying to sniff out the cheese, and he's trying to sniff out the gold. But you sympathize with him the most because I think it's the scene where he reunites with his brother, which when I was a kid, I don't remember that scene very well. I didn't even know that was his brother.
Yeah, that was the priest was his brother.
Yeah, and you kind of learn about like where he came from and how he had like for his family that you had like two different paths you could take in life. You could to avoid poverty and basically dying, starving. You could either be a priest or you could become a bandit. And I guess Tuco's brother, he abandons the family to become a priest, which I mean, not abandoning for the faith. That's a pretty good cause. But he left Tuco to like take care of his family, and he kind of resented his brother for that. Like, I was like 12, 13 years old, and I had to take care of the family. And then somewhere along the line, he lost his way and just gave in to being the most despicable bandit out there.
Rat.
Yeah, he literally has a rap, like they list off his rap sheet the first time he's about to be hung, and he like basically said like, yeah, he's stolen, he's robbed banks, he's raped, he's an adulterer, like he's done literally everything under the sun, and yet somehow we still sympathize with him because he's almost a victim of his own circumstances. Did you ever think about like Tuco being the main character of the movie, or did that never occur to you?
Yeah, I think he was the entertaining part of the whole movie, because I remember, he got back up they put him back up, and McClane had already divided $2,000. He's back underneath the lasso again, and they said, Now he was wanted in 15 counties. That increased by one county just to make sure it was accurate every time.
Each county was like another $1,000.
Yeah. So then, even when Clint Eastwood would bring him in, that was the entertaining part of it. He had a foul mouth, and he called Clint Eastwood's mother everything but under the sun and spit out his face. And then kind of fought with the sheriff, and he played a good part. That was, I think, the second time he was underneath the lasso. Some lady heard what he'd done and kind of went, "Oh, mine." He goes, "Arr!" just to scare her. He was a good actor, not only in that, but he's
Walsh.
Played, he's played in Godfathers and all sorts of movies.
Yeah, was he in Godfather 3?
I think he was in the final.
Yeah, the third part 3.
Is that part 3?
I don't remember his character, but I'll have to rewatch it.
He was like when Michael brought everybody into the realm, this big round circle, he was one of the. He wasn't, obviously Michael was the godfather.
Oh, was he like one of the five families?
One of the 5 families or something, lesser 5 families.
I remember him in, I don't know if you've seen this movie, How to Steal a Million. It's like a heist rom-com with Audrey Hepburn and Peter O'Toole. He plays it's not really a bad guy, but he plays the guy who is trying to get this statue that's like a forgery, that he's desperately trying to get this statue, and he kind of plays this like funny kind of bumbling villain guy who's not really villainous, but he's a really good comic relief actor, which I think is why he also works in this movie, because and why he's can be endearing, because he's funny. I texted you last night when I was finishing the film. One of my favorite lines is when he's in the bathtub and that guy with the messed up face comes into and he's about to shoot him, and you think like, oh, he doesn't have his gun or anything, but then just out of the tub, he blows him away, and he stands up and goes, "When you have to shoot, don't talk.
Don't talk a guy to death." Yeah, that was a funny line. He had great lines, and his character in this movie was probably the most physical of all of the characters.
Oh yeah,
and in fact, I was reading the thing that in the movie they said, but between the bridge blowing up, they had to do it like twice.
Oh yeah, because they signaled each other wrong.
Yeah, he almost got killed like 2 or 3 times in the movie between horses, mules, the train. I mean,
he didn't know that there was a step ladder on the train, and so like if he had stood up, he would have been decapitated.
Yeah, it was just like, oh my gosh! I mean, there were so many different things that he had the most physical and comedic part of the movie, but without him, I don't think it would have been. And maybe they would have found a different actor, but I think he was perfect.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I don't think you could have gotten anyone else to play that role the way that he did. He's memorable for a reason. Yeah. And I think I remember another layer of Clint Eastwood's character. Like, if everybody is a variation on like bad, like the bad is like he's bad as sin. The ugly is just he's not worse than the bad. He's just trying to survive, and he just does whatever he wants for his own pleasure.
He's ugly to the public eye.
Yeah, but then Clint Eastwood, like to his credit, like he works with Tuco in the beginning of the movie, and then instead of like killing him and taking all the money, he like gives him his due, and he's like, "Well, I'm just gonna leave you in the desert. Yeah, see you later." And even after Tuco gets his revenge, and he makes him walk through like 100 miles of desert and tortures him with dehydration, he still works with him only because like they both have 2 bits of information for finding the gold. But he like, to his credit, the whole movie, like he could have offed him at any time, even when he found out the name of the cemetery near the bridge scene. But to his credit, like he never actually kills him, even at the very end. Not to get to, I want to save the end for a little later, but even at the very end, he doesn't kill him, and he puts him in a very precarious position where he's like, wow, he's probably gonna die, and he gives him just enough to survive, because he knows that that's what Tuco's good at. It's like, if you, as long as you give him his life and like enough resources, like he will find a way to survive, because
he's the rat.
He's the rat, yeah. So I think that's an entertaining part. That's why he's considered the good of all these bad characters, because he does have a soft spot that the bad and the ugly don't really have.
Right.
Even when he's like giving, like they're in the Civil War battle, and he comes across that dying soldier. He gives him his coat. He gives him his cigar.
He gave that captain. He says, hang on long enough and listen. Keep your ears open. And he did, just so he could hear that bridge blow up, because the captain, none of the military could do that, because they court-martial him and hang him. But he did them, all those guys, they were on both sides of the fence, south and north. So,
did you ever consider this movie to be like an anti-war film?
Yes, no, that yes. Question, yes, Clint Eastwood and Tuco could be considered anti-war, but in the movie, it didn't seem like they were doing it for that reason. They were just doing it because all these guys were just dying. And he even says in there that they're just, the captain says they're going to their slaughter for no reason at all. But,
Clint Eastwood has a line in there where he's like, "I've never seen so many men wasted so badly."
That's right.
Yeah, I think for their characters, because they just care about the gold and stuff, they're not really interested. They're not interested in the war. They kind of see it as just this like nuisance that's getting in their way to getting the gold. And like the bridge is just like, it's gotta blow up that freaking bridge, because we can't get across other than that. And it's funny how like I had read somewhere before I finished the movie that it was Sergio Leone kind of made it an anti-war film, and that he just felt like the Civil War in particular was kind of a cause that didn't really amount to much. Which, I mean, I'm not saying I agree with that. That can be debated.
Well, and he's probably not originally. I mean,
there was a noble cause. I mean, fighting against slavery and all that. So, but for all intents and purposes, that was his goal for the movie, and maybe as just a vague anti-war statement about like wasting men's lives so carelessly over like simple disagreements was ridiculous, which I can agree with to a degree. But I think it's funny because Blondie and Tuco, they don't really care about the war. It's just a nuisance getting in the way of getting the gold, and then blowing up the bridge is just a means to that end. But you see, at least
but Clint actually makes that statement though too. So I mean,
but for Blondie, he shows sympathy to the soldiers through it, like you said, with giving the captain the drink, and the soldier, the Yankee captain, the alcohol, and then the Confederate soldier,
the last puffs on the cigar.
The last puffs on the cigar. So in a way, it's like it doesn't really matter his size. Like they're still men, and we're like, no one deserved to die as horribly as they did in that battle. But inadvertently, they end up saving like millions of men's lives, because like they're ducking for cover, and then they wake up and like the whole place is just cleared out. No Confederates, no Yankees,
and I couldn't figure out if that was because during the blowing up of the bridge, they both were knocked out, because you just don't all of a sudden wake up and everybody's gone. So they had to have been knocked out.
There had to have been some little passage of time. I agree, because I was like, wait a minute. Like, there's no way that Tuco was just sitting with his butt in the air for
and I thought, if
2 hours.
Explode, why would you put your butt in the air? Lay as flat as you want.
Maybe they got knocked out by the shock or something. Like, who knows? But I guess the implication is like they were probably sitting there for a long period of time just to make sure that like no shrapnel or nothing, because it was a huge explosion. Like you said, they had to reshoot it twice because the camera crew gave the demolitions like a thumbs up, like they were ready to shoot, and they thought, oh well, they're ready to blow up the bridge, and they blew up the bridge by accident the first time.
Imagine how expensive having to rebuild that whole thing again.
Well, that's the funny thing. And maybe adjusting for inflation it'd be different, but this movie only cost $1.5 million to make. That was the budget.
Back then, it's not really that much. That's including paying the actors. And
Yeah,
everything.
and Clint Eastwood, I read that his payment was $250,000, 10% of the profit, and a new Ferrari.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I mean,
like he played hard to get because he didn't want to come back for the third movie, but he drove a hard bargain.
Yeah.
And the movie ended up making like $38 million at the box
geez.
office, which at the time was like
10% of that.
Yeah, which was a huge box office success.
Yeah.
And I think gave spaghetti westerns the reputation they have today because they weren't really well thought of before then.
Right.
We should probably talk about the bad Lee Van Cleef's character, Angel Eyes.
They pretty much. I mean, you knew he was bad right off the bat just by his actions. I mean,
he looks like the devil.
He does. and if that wife would have come out with a gun, I think he'd have shot her too.
Yeah. It was actually kind of like, I mean, it was sad, that opening scene where he shoots the father and the son, but I was also kind of relieved, like, oh, well, he didn't shoot the first son that we see at the beginning of that scene.
The younger son.
Yeah, so it's tragic, but it also makes him like really evil.
And then he gets the $1,500 because the guy offers him $1,500 to kill the guy who
commissioned him. Yeah,
and he kills him too. Puts a pillow over his head and shoots him 4 times in the head. Yeah,
only because the guy he told him to kill commissioned him to kill him back. And I love his line. He's like, like the thing about me is, if I see a job through, if I get paid, I see the job through. If I'm asked to do a job, I always see it through. And he's like, no matter the cost, whatever. Like he literally just cares about like if
the money.
If Clint Eastwood's character Blondie is just in it for the money, but he has a heart, Tuco is just like, I don't care about anybody else. I just need to survive. He's just like, I want my money. Yeah. I'm gonna kill men, women, and children to get however I want. Like he almost killed that girl, Maria, that was Bill Carson's sweetheart. Like if she hadn't talked, I'm sure she would have gotten it too.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, he's great because he's like the perfect villain in that, like you want to hate your villain as much as possible in order for your hero to be more righteous. And even then, like you have moments where you kind of I don't want to say sympathize with him, but he can be like deceptive in that, like when he's disguised as the Yankee general.
Mm-hmm.
And he brings Tuco in because he wants to talk to him about Bill Carson and the cemetery. He kind of like gives them a false sense of security, like, good to see old friends again. Have some food, have some drink.
And Tuco doesn't even trust him to eat the food, so he has to take a spoonful out of Tuco's food to eat, so he knew it wasn't poison.
And then Tuco is like, oh, maybe I'll screw Blondie, maybe I'll team up with Angel Eyes. We'll go get the gold together.
Yeah.
And then of course Angel Eyes is like, he gets that big brooding guy and tortures Tuco over the music playing so that no one can hear the sounds of his torture. That's a pretty brutal scene. It just goes to show the lengths that he'll go to. Like he will deceive anyone, he'll kill anyone, he'll use anyone to just get what he wants.
Yep. And even that big guy that beat the crap out of Tuco, they put him on a prisoner train to get him out of there, and the big guy was going to keep him
handcuffed to
him and make sure he gets out of there. And somehow Tuco still gets out.
Yeah.
He ends up killing the big guy jumping off the train, but he was pretty crafty about that. I can't go while you're watching me.
Yeah.
So he gets him to turn his head.
That was good.
Versus some more.
Did you notice also, like at the end of the scene when they blow up the bridge, whether they're walking ahead? Did you notice that, like, Tuco's walking and he's peeing while walking?
Oh, he is?
Yeah, you can tell, like there's, like, this little wet trail as he's walking in front. He's kind of, like, walking weird. He's like, had his hands near his crotch, and he's got this big, wide walk.
I missed that.
Yeah, and it's like, what's he doing? And I had to rewind it, like, he's peeing while walking. It's just kind of, like, it's like a funny little quirk that, like, it adds to the dirtiness of his character.
How smelly he was all the time, remember?
Yeah.
And even that big guy that was with him after they beat him all at 6, he
stink.
And he goes, so for him to have to actually have some privacy while he's peeing, that kind of
that's funny.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. And he finally gets a bath at some point in the movie. Yeah. We should probably talk about I think the most iconic scene, the best scene in the whole movie, the final act, the standoff, when they finally get to the cemetery.
Right.
Like that whole, I mean, as a filmmaker, someone who wants to make movies, like that whole scene is just like endless creativity and like the length of time it takes for just to get from like Tuco finding the grave and this like I think the song that plays is called "Ecstasy of Gold," like because he's just in this moment of ecstasy. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I finally found it."
Yeah.
I love it. They take their whole time, like him running across the cemetery to the center. He like takes it in, and then the music starts to pick up as he's running around frantically, like the little rat walk I was talking about, until he finally finds the cemetery. I just think it's like one of cinema's greatest. The whole scene, not even just that moment, that whole scene. I think is just one of cinema's greatest.
Once they get to that big circle, Tuco got there, then I guess the artistry of the whole scene kind of unfolded, and it took a while. And there was the shovel scene, where they didn't even Van Cleve hadn't been around for quite a while.
And he just pops up out of nowhere.
He pops up out of nowhere, and he goes, "I think two can dig faster than one."
Yeah, I think it's funny. Just going back to him for a second, I think it's also funny that like Blondie and Tuco, like they kill all his gang.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, "Peace out."
Yeah.
Like you can kill my guys. I'm going for the gold. Like and he'll literally like use his gang to get what he wants. And die, including Tuco. Tuco like reunites with his gang.
Yeah. Lets them all get shot up too.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the Mexican standoff. Yeah. What a great scene. You seeing that for the first time when you were a kid, what did you think of that?
Well, and seeing the whole thing and then coming back later to it, you're thinking, why is Clint Eastwood so confident? Because he's the one that orchestrated this whole thing.
Yeah, that's right.
He puts that rock down with supposedly the name of the right person.
The right grave.
Yeah, and Tuco was mad at him. He says, "You didn't tell me the right name." And he's like, "No." He said,
"You thought I trust you?"
so he puts supposedly this name on the rock, and then he orchestrates this whole thing to back up away from everybody. So he gets the side that he thinks is his fastest side, which apparently is his right side. Van Cleve has to do a kind of a crossed draw out of his waistband.
And I didn't even notice that.
He's on the fast side too.
And is he?
Yeah, and Tuco was a straight shooter with the draw to the right.
He didn't even need a holster. He had a string attached.
Well, that's right. He had a string, and he just had it down there, and that was what he felt was his most comfortable. But they all had their, we're ready to go, but Clint set it up because he knew Tuco didn't have any bullets in his gun. So all he had to do was worry about Van Cleve and him shooting, and he must have seen him shoot, or I don't know. Clint Eastwood always seemed to be super fast anyway. But,
I think it's funny that like it just kind of goes to show how little they both think of Tuco because Lee Van Cleef doesn't even go for Tuco. He just goes for Clint Eastwood.
Yeah. He just keeps looking at Clint Eastwood. He's like, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
Or he thinks he's going to miss. I don't know. Maybe they've seen him shoot too because he's obviously Clint Eastwood's not the one on the left.
Well, he knows Tuco too. Like he's like, "Oh, you're an old friend," so he knows who Tuco is. They all know who they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's kind of funny that like Clint Eastwood is like 10 steps ahead of everybody. Even when he's like telling Tuco the alleged name of the grave, Arch Stanton, he's like, that technically wasn't even real. And I was like, wait, how did he just know some random name of the grave? And then he reveals later, like, oh, well, Bill Carson told me the grave is marked unknown, the one next to Arch Stanton. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. This movie's great. Like,
because even when he said that
name, covered.
Tuco was like, Arch Stanton? Okay. He was in disbelief of that name even when he first told him.
Yeah. No, it's a great scene. And then again, you get to like, they finally get the gold, and to Tuco's credit, like he doesn't say like, "Oh, it's all mine, it's all mine." He's like, "It's all ours, Blondie. We did it." Like in a way, I think he's like come to this place where he fully trusts Blondie, but then Blondie's like, "No." He wants like one final revenge before their partnership ends.
His little tour in the desert was a little bit more brutal than Tuco's. Not having any water, he just walked to a town and got water and guns and everything.
But Tuco
else.
also survived a walk in the desert, so he knew that wouldn't be enough. So I think really like taunting him with the gold in front of him and hit like a hangman's noose around him is like literally moments to death, and just leaving him out there.
Yeah.
But then he's like, you'll survive. You got your gold. I'll give you your freedom.
Yeah.
And it just like I wash my hands of you in a way.
And Tuco was still mad at him even after that. He was swearing at him, didn't he?
Yeah, you're like, you know what you are, just a
that's
dirty,
right.
rotten son of a...
Yeah,
I love that. It's a nice little crescendo for the scene to end, and then you watch Clint Eastwood ride off into the distance, and then it cuts to credits at the end. Like it's a perfect ending. Yeah, it's just like I think that last, if you like you said, there are some slow parts. I admit. I think it's because also this is what most people have probably watched is the extended cut of the movie.
Yeah,
most of the scenes were added. I think in 2003 during like anniversary recut of the film. But even then, like if you're able to get to that final scene, like it's the greatest cinematic payoff ever, and you really feel rewarded as an audience member because you've gone on this journey with these characters, and the right people survive and the right people die. I mean, in the case of those three.
Yeah. Well, and then Clint Eastwood was such a good shot in the movie. He took Lee Van Cleef's hat and shot it into the grave.
And his gun.
into the grave. And it was like, okay, he's obviously the
I also thought it was funny that like he's standing by an open grave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you didn't know that already, it's like, oh, his fate's already kind of sealed subliminally. Yeah. Did you know that there's actually several sequences where Eli Wallach and Clint Eastwood re-recorded dialogue? Like in 2003. Like you might notice, remember the scene where Tuco, he has the dead chicken and he's trying to track down his gang?
Yeah.
You notice he kind of sounds a little older in that scene? His voice sounds a little more rough. Yeah. I was listening this morning comparing the scenes because I always thought when we watched it, I was like, he sounds so different in that scene than he does in the rest of like other parts of the movie. And you can find other scenes where Clint Eastwood and him sound a little older. Clint Eastwood does a little better job.
They re-record him then?
Yeah, like in 2003 for this extended cut.
Is that because the audio was not that good?
I don't think they had any audio because, as you and I both know, this is a spaghetti western means it was shot and produced in Italy.
Yeah.
And most of the extras are Italian actors. Mm-hmm. The only actors that were actually speaking in English for the whole movie are Lee Van Cleef, Clint Eastwood, and Eli Wallach. And they even had to re-record some of their lines, not just because everything was in Italian, they had to redub it into English, but Enrique Morricone and Sergio Leone, they created the whole soundtrack before they started filming the movie. Right. And this is a practice even made popular today with some films. Sergio Leone wanted the music played during filming to set the tone and the pace, so that's why it seems like certain scenes drag on a little longer because it's paced specifically with the music, and he knew exactly how he wanted to shoot it, how long he wanted certain scenes to be. And so that's I think that's the main reason why most of even the English speaking parts were redubbed, but there were just some scenes that were never in the original cut of the film, and then for this extended, I don't know if Sergio Leone lived long enough to be a part of this cut, or if they just made it for. But they did it for the 2003 release of the film, which I think was the first DVD release of the movie, and they're like, well, let's just cut all these scenes together and let's re-record them. And I think that behind the scenes information, it makes it kind of a fun watch. Like, wow, like after all these years, these actors who are at least 30, 60 years older come back to re-record these lines for prior to their roles. And it's not horrible. Like, I mean, I didn't even really notice, like, oh, he sounds like older, but I just thought, like, oh, maybe that was just the audio quality of the ADR recording.
I'm wondering now if remember the gunsmith, the old guy with the mustache. Now he moved his lips, but to me, to me, it didn't seem like he sounded like he had been dubbed over. Because you said like he was Italian too then.
Yeah, he was Italian.
And so his lips didn't really match what he said in the movie, but he had a nice enough mustache on him. You couldn't see his lips as well.
Yeah.
But that makes more sense to me because he seemed like he was very plain and simple and easy to understand him. But that's probably because it was dubbed over.
Yeah. Yeah, some of them, if you're not looking, you're not really paying attention, you can't really tell. But like the short guy with no legs, you can tell he's Italian.
Half soldier.
Yeah, Shorty.
Shorty, the half soldier. Jeez. And,
Luke, give me a drink.
Yeah. And he had this like platform. He looked like he was mounted to that was like rounded, and then he had blocks in his hands.
And bricks.
Bricks in his
hands. I think it was
to
give him like leverage to prop himself up.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean,
pretty wild, but like it's like a really kind of fun little detail.
Well, I wonder if that guy truly was that way.
Oh, I'm sure he was. I mean,
I'd say because he was so little and so short, I don't think he could have made up even that wooden platform that he was kind of mounted to. I don't think you'd hide your legs in there.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
It's funny. Like I think back to like a movie like Star Wars, where you can kind of see where maybe George Lucas took influence from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and westerns like this, because it's kind of this like wild world with like people who got their legs cut off, and Clint Eastwood and Tuco, Blondie, Tuco, and Angel Eyes are all very like distinct characters, and you see those archetypes in Star Wars. And even I was thinking like The Mandalorian, like Clint Eastwood's character is kind of like the Mandalorian in a lot of ways. He starts out just kind of carelessly just does things for the money. He has a bit of a higher calling to protect the other Mandalorians and protect Baby Yoda, but like he starts out very like I'm going to bring you in warm or cold. That kind of seems like something Blondie would have said.
Yeah. Doesn't matter as long as I get my money.
Yeah.
Him or leaving Bree's character.
Mm-hmm.
Like even in Star Wars, the bar scenes where they had all these weird looking characters and mangled characters.
Yeah, exactly.
And that half soldier guy, and then they were, there's so many people in the movie in the Civil War portion of it that were, blown up or.
I think there's a guy with like his arm sleeve was like tied up or whatever.
Oh yeah, and the guy that chased after Tuco, he lost his right arm.
Oh yeah,
he had to switch. He had to switch to the left hand. That's what he's
like. I got real good used to. I've been chasing you for 8 months. Like that's been that long.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, don't talk, just shoot.
Yeah. Did you know that there was brief talk of a sequel to this movie, like a direct sequel?
Oh, really? There's a lot of movies that I remember in my era when I was younger that they've done sequels or remakes of it, and there's some of them I just don't think turned out very well.
They don't hold up.
Yeah, and there's a couple that did. One that did not was who's the black actor that slapped the comedian?
Will Smith.
Will Smith did with his movie. He was the only person left in like New York. Well, that was done by Charlton Heston.
I Am Legend?
Yeah.
Oh.
That was done originally by Charlton Heston.
Oh, I Am Legend was a Charlton Heston movie too?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And Charlton Heston did a phenomenal job. And then when you watched his, it was almost like he was a doctor, and so was. I think Charlton Heston was a smart guy too in his movie, but
it was like a different take.
Yeah, and I just, I didn't. Since I had been such a big fan of Charlton Heston's too, I'd watched that movie several times and looked at that and thought, yeah, I like the old one. It was a little bit more dicey. He almost got numerous other times where Will Smith was kind of out looking around for somebody, and they never had anybody come out until he chased down somebody in the dark. And it was just like, you dummy, that's, everybody knows you don't do that. You know? And so I don't know. If you ever seen the Charlton Heston version, which was the original, and then you watch Will Smith's, I think you can see
night and day difference.
Yeah. There's
I don't think I've seen either of those, so I'll have to watch those.
And I'm not a big super Will Smith fan. I don't dislike him. I don't like him, but
it's kind of different.
Yeah, it just Charlton Heston's version of that movie.
I mean, anything Charlton Heston does is going to be astronomically better.
Yeah,
he's just a great actor.
Bad movies, but anyway.
Yeah, the storyline was, I think it was like in the late 90s or something. They were talking about a sequel with Clint Eastwood and Eli Wallach coming back, and it was Clint Eastwood's grandson who had like his portion of the money or something that was stashed away, and it had like grown over time. Eli Wallach was going after him to like get revenge on Blondie after all those years. I think they all like Clint Eastwood and Eli Wallach. They were all like, "Oh yeah, I'd do it." Yeah,
was Lee Van Cleef passed at that
point? He was passed, so and he was dead, so he wouldn't have
yeah.
But I think Sergio Leone, he was like, I don't really want to do another one. Like we did technically like a loose trilogy with the Dollars trilogy.
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything beyond that. I don't want to.
Well, and you had Fistful of Dollars and Fistful of Dollars too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in how many? Yeah, if he felt like those were the trilogies to that, then I can see where he's probably thinking this is going to get worn out.
Yeah. Ironically, though, like the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was the one that was like, wow, like this is what really like capitalized on the genre and made the spaghetti western genre popular. Right. And then the other two, I think, have the reputation of like they're good movies, but the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is like the excellent one, the one that's highly regarded. I remember watching those two. I think we'll have to revisit those because I remember watching those with you. But again, because I was a kid, I had a short attention span. I don't remember much from any of those movies except for like maybe the scene where he has the bulletproof vest. Like that's the only thing that I can really recall.
Yeah, because the guy that was in that movie, the character was a Mexican guy with blue eyes, and he played in a lot of different spaghetti westerns, and he was always a pretty evil guy. He was a good actor. I mean, he did a good job in all the movies that he ever played in. And I never really followed him as much, but I thought he was a good actor. But, you'd have to look at all of them, and then there's actually Yul Brynner westerns, which he was on the original Magnificent Seven.
Oh yeah, and Eli Wallach was in that too. He played the bad guy.
And then there was a couple other Yul Brynner ones. There was one called Westworld.
Yeah, I've never seen that one, but
that's pretty creepy and scary. And that's where you look at Yul Brynner. I think it's kind of creeped me out.
Yeah.
So, but
wasn't he in The King and I too?
Yeah, and that was probably his pinnacle of his career. He was a very good actor. He was always smoking off camera though, and died kind of young of lung cancer because of smoking, and did some advertisements about smoking while he was going through treatment and stuff like that.
Like anti-smoking?
Yeah. But he's a phenomenal actor. I don't know what his personal life was, I guess, kind of a train wreck. But
maybe,
sometimes all actors are that way. Sometimes they are. Heck, look at Clint Eastwood. He's,
94
years old. Still alive.
He just directed a movie last year.
Yeah, so I mean...
No one saw it because they didn't put any marketing material behind it, but it was a good movie. He's still got it. 94 years old. He's still directing. I don't think he does interviews anymore, but he's still making movies and still kicking it.
Yeah.
I think I remember him saying about there was this big like 20, 30 film collection of Clint Eastwood films coming out. There's this interview he said where he's like, making movies are fun to me. I love doing it. And if it doesn't become fun, you won't see me doing it anymore.
Yeah.
And he's still doing it, so he must still think it's fun.
Keeps him young.
Yeah.
I
think the movie that came out last year, I think it's called Juror Number 2. I think a lot of people were like, oh, this might be his last movie, but I think I've also heard the contrary, like, oh, he doesn't really have any plans to retire. He doesn't know what his next movie will be, but he wants to make another one after this. So I say as long as he's still got it and he wants to.
You gotta stay busy.
Yeah. Well, Dad, any final thoughts on Good, the Bad, and the Ugly before we head out?
No, just I think people ought to watch more of the older movies, like the ones that we mentioned from different other actors too.
Yeah.
And like even I don't know how many times I've watched this movie, but I've still picked up on things that I'd missed. You know, uh, and I think you said that to me too. You didn't realize this, and we had picked up.
Well,
some
there was
names.
a lot that I didn't pay attention to as a kid, so I picked up on a ton. Like, whoa!
Like that Fistful of Dollars and Fistful of Dollars too. I'm sure if I start watching those again, one thing nice about having like Roku or whatever, you can stop and back up and really analyze things more than you could when we were growing up or watching
With VHS.
Yeah, I mean, really, VHS was okay, but it didn't back up very well.
You'd have to rewind it
after
you finished it before you could watch it again.
Yeah, so it was tougher to review. But just watch different older movies, and when you watch them, realize, I wonder how many people copied off of this, which is, that's fine to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then put your own little stint on it. So that,
like Clint Eastwood, gosh, I'm getting the names mixed up.
Oh,
again. Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino. I never thought, I didn't know anything about him following the movie genre that he did with Sierra, or with the
director?
The director,
Sergio Leone.
Yeah, but it makes sense now that you said that, and I'm thinking of the movies I've watched of his. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, he's very talented, because he definitely keeps you guessing and wondering what's going to be the next turn in that movie.
Yeah, I kind of want to go on a bit of a binge now, rewatch the Dollars trilogy, Once Upon a Time in the West, which is also one of my favorites. Oh, really? One thing I wanted to ask you about, because you said you're a big John Wayne fan, and those I've grown up on, like Rio Bravo is like probably my favorite Western that you've showed me. There's a very like stark difference between the spaghetti westerns of Clint Eastwood and the more idealistic American frontier westerns of John Wayne,
right,
where he is kind of like the idealized American version, or as you said, like it's kind of a fairy tale western motif, whereas The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is much more darker, borderline kind of nihilistic, whereas everyone's kind of some variation of bad, and it's kill or be killed. But you clearly love both genres, both types of westerns.
Yeah, I mean, you have to just take them in their context. I think John Wayne's movies got actually better as he got older.
Well, I think we mentioned Big Jake was kind of I think it was kind of a statement on like the evolution of westerns.
Right.
His character was kind of set in his old ways, but he was going up against some kind of more modern, darker figures who like that
more
movie.
Dangerous.
Yeah, that movie's pretty violent compared to his older movies.
Yeah. And then also like his last movie was with him, The Shootist, and kind of dealing with his mortality. And John Wayne died of cancer, I think, shortly thereafter.
Converted to Catholicism on his deathbed, I think.
Yes, he did. And so, I mean, that was interesting because he was very conservative politically and religiously, but in obviously changing to Catholicism. I thought his wife was Catholic, but I'd have to go back and research that to see if it was true. But I knew there was somebody in his family who was an influence of the Catholic faith with him. Like I said, I think as he got older, I'm trying to think of another movie, the one where not the Shootist, but Rooster Cogburn.
True Grit. Yeah,
True Grit, and as he got older, those characters really showed that his talent was not going anywhere just because he was older.
Yeah.
In fact, if you watch some of his younger ones, he's just an actor. On the really young John Wayne ones, I mean, he's clean cut, good looking guy, so that's why they liked him. But he was always just lily white in some of those movies, to the point where it was just like, okay, yeah, I got this.
It's kind of like the same struggle like some silent film actors had, like when talkies became a thing, and people were kind of poo-pooing that as like an advancement technology that was limiting people's ability to have a career. But so there are certain actors that could translate really well to just like natural born talent on screen, and then some actors are just like they couldn't act, they're like dependent on it because they depended on like silent films to be able to mimic the lines and all that. I think maybe the same thing goes for like even when talkies, like when movies became more nuanced, and you get to like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. John Wayne was one of those actors that was very easily able to pivot
Mm-hmm.
And even though he kind of has the same shtick, he kind of plays the same character in a lot of movies. Like you said, he's still a good actor, and he still has a lot of range. Like, you can watch him in the Alamo, and he'll be giving this inspiring speech about America and how much he loves the word republic. And then you go to Big Jake, and he's telling everyone to go to hell. And you call me daddy again, I'm going to finish this fight.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, that was a good one. So, yeah, no, I'm definitely going to continue. I've always have, but I continue to promote people watching these older films, because I think there is just more nuance. There's more being said. And I think these older films and the newer films, and not that the newer films have nothing to say, but I just think that there's not enough time. Like, they're all confined to like less than 2 hours to say something meaningful, and I don't think a lot of them can really communicate a message, or
the writers are getting stifled to where they can't write stuff. They can make it more meaningful in 2 hours.
I think it has more to do with the studios than it does with the creativity of the filmmakers. Because I think The Good, the Bad, the Ugly is like pure escapist cinema with some like thinly veiled anti-war commentary. And like, if you want to talk about like political messaging, like if you have an issue with anti-war films, I mean, and you like The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, you might want to check yourself. Because I think this does a good job of saying its statement without beating you over the head. Like, well, if you love war, then you're a horrible person.
Yeah.
It's subtle.
Yeah. It's very subtle. It's subtle. And but it's stated. So, it doesn't knock you over the head.
Yeah. So. And I think if people want to, even if I don't agree with those messages, if people want to do their messages like that, I think that's a much easier way to make people think, by just like simply introducing an idea in as truthful a context as you can, and then let the truth stand on its own. If it's truly truthful, people will resonate with it. If it's not, then it's just going to fall on its face.
Freedom of speech.
Exactly, freedom of speech. All right, well, Dad, thank you for being on the show again. I don't think I could I couldn't think of anyone else I'd rather have on the show to talk about these westerns. And again,
find another movie down the road. We'll talk about.
Yeah, maybe we'll shake it up and we'll talk about.
We'll do. Let's do Westworld.
Oh yeah, that'll be fun, because you've seen Westworld, right?
Yeah.
Okay, again, I haven't seen Westworld at all. I know it's about.
It's more of a modern. I'll let you watch it.
And it's like totally westerns, different. But it's like a sci-fi western, right?
It's a fantasy world where different fantasies are put out, and it's a modern day.
Okay, interesting.
And one of them is in one of the numerous parks. One of them is called Westworld.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
I think you'll like it.
Yeah, let's just leave it at that, and we'll have my dad back on to discuss that one.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks for coming on.
You bet, buddy.
Anytime. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. God bless, and peace out.
Bye-bye.